I'm all about access. I want cannabinoids as safe and cheap and easily accessible as Tylenol. That is at the end of the day. And my small business people, I'm a co-chair of the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm part of all these business organizations. I'm not an anti-capitalist hippie all the way. Part of me is questioning it, but I believe in conscious capitalism. I believe, like I said, love can be lucrative and these things can make money. So it's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just acknowledging where you're at and then also helping out. If you're a smaller person, try to work with the MSOs, get some of your genetics in there, maybe tell them how to be a little bit more to the culture. And if you're up here, let's give some of your time and your sponsorship money to the little guys. We all need each other, right?
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Cannabis Accounting Podcast, coming to you live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Today I have with me Luna Stower, the founder of Luna Stower Strategies, a cannabis consulting agency. Luna, for those who don't know you, introduce yourself and let them know what you do.
Fabulous. Thank you, Raymond Guns, one of my favorite people in the space. I am so honored to be on this. I've watched so many of them. You have incredible guests, and I'm happy to be reporting live from Oakland, California, San Leandro to be exact, where I'm born and raised. And yeah, it's been really fun the last year or so since I left Ispire. Many of you guys know that I was employee number one at Jetty Extracts and built them to now where they went on the Canadian Stock Exchange with Canopy, and then was with Ispire as employee number one and brought them to a place where they were able to go public on the NASDAQ. So I'm really fun. It's been really fun the last year to be on my own and doing my own consultancy and supporting all my friends, because I really consider myself an industry ambassador more than a brand ambassador. Yeah, I really just have been loving this plant since I was 11. I've been smoking, growing, and selling it in the Bay Area forever. And being a teacher in the Bay Area really supported my ability to have cannabis grow and support all my friends, because I had that educational career. And then I moved into cannabis about 12 years ago and have been loosely in the vape space, but really just marketing, storytelling. I believe in normalization and removing the stigma. And a lot of that means changing hearts and minds through communications and PR and social media and advocacy, lobbying. I always see Christy and you and the team at the lobby days, both on the local, state, and federal levels. So shout out to Dope CFO and your whole team for always really putting your money where your mouth is, supporting the after events, whether it's in Berlin or St. Louis, Missouri, after MJ Unpacked. Everywhere there I go, you guys are doing good work and supporting it. So it's been a beautiful pleasure to know you guys and see you guys grow in the space. And it's an honor to be here with you today to chat about the thing we love the most, weed, and the people that love weed.
For sure. No, I appreciate you catching people up to speed. And yeah, shout out Christy. She was just in DC last week. And yeah, still, we were just talking off air a little bit of, we are like fish in water. We think cannabis is legal. We're focused every day about bringing products to market, making sure we're compliant, making sure we're bringing good products to market, which a big piece of that is education. But even before the market even gets legal, there is still this advocacy and stigma. And I know you were a teacher before the cannabis industry in California. Everybody thinks there's zero stigma, but I know there was and is still stigma. So can you tell a little bit about just your transition from becoming a teacher, getting into the cannabis industry, and what were some lessons that you brought to the cannabis industry where you're like, all right, I can actually use this to add a lot of value in this space?
The most obvious one was right when I left the classroom. I was doing brand ambassador work and built out the sales and marketing arm of Jetty Extract. So really a lot of in-store direct to consumer education, and realizing you are going to have to say, hit the button 5 times on, 5 times off, 1,000 times a day. And you have to be just like you are when you're a school teacher. You have to, every period on the period, you're doing the same. When I was teaching 6th grade history, it was the same lesson every hour on the hour for 6 times. And you have to be fresh and make the same jokes to make the kids laugh or engage that patient. And so that was the first thing, was really like, wow, curriculum, visual organizers, realia is what we call it, having physical things to have in their hands, smelling terpenes, all the things that I learned about teaching for understanding. That's something that a lot of people in the progressive teaching profession versus the kind of traditional one where you're just ramming things down people's throats and seeing these empty vessels as needing to be filled. It's meeting people where they are and also making sure that they are understanding you. It's like the train doesn't take off without, or maybe the train does, but the bus isn't going to take off. The school bus isn't going to take off until all the students are on that bus. So it's people moving on and just being like, okay, and then going on to the next thing without checking to make sure. So that can look everything from, like I said, the consumer level, but also even to the corporate level, where it's, do we understand, are the expectations set? Are contracts looking right? When you have a .gov or .edu email address and you are a delegate of the state for children, you have to give them EpiMeds or EpiPens and their medicines and things like that. You basically are a nurse, a mother, a government official. I used to work in prisons and jails. I worked in San Quentin and worked in juvenile halls and stuff like that, right around here in the Bay Area. And you need to have a green card to go into the state of California. It's a full background check. You need to go through the same training with the correctional officers that they all go through. You get the live scan, all that stuff. So there's this kind of due diligence that I think that I've learned, and professionalism, like how to use email, how to calendar things, how to talk to legal counsel, how to talk to legislators, how to organize communities in groups. That's something that teaching taught me that I think that this industry needs a lot more of. There's not much literacy, right? We're trying to build literacy, just like people know what drinking a glass of wine does or smoking a cigarette does. Not everyone knows what smoking a joint or eating an edible is going to do. So we don't have that sophisticated literacy built around this thing. So we have to we need educators at every level. Even if it's just business consulting. At the end of the day, you're just putting someone on game. You're advising. It's just a fancy word for educating. You're letting folks know. And so everyone's an educator. You doing this podcast is real education, right?
Yeah. For sure. We think of it as like part of our VIP, like the I stand for instruction. And it's like, it's just educating and helping people. And I know it's valuable because I get educated from people. I learn from people. So like I built a whole business after learning from other people. So it's, water rolls downhill. So that's interesting to think of, like education of kids actually is like similar to educating first time cannabis people. Because I think like we're so used to like, and like people drink less and less, but for those who do drink, like at one point you did not know what alcohol was like. And then you turned 21 and you were in college or whenever you were in your life, you experimented with alcohol and you're like, oh, I learned about this drug. Same with all the drugs. Like you experiment, you're like, I have an idea now. I know how mushrooms will affect me different than cannabis. Somebody told me. So it's the same with with cannabis, where there's so many new people where they forget that like even though they're adults, you got to think of it as like educating your youth on alcohol or anything. And
even
really.
CEOs, even people that are new to cannabis, sometimes you have to hold their hand and say, "Hey, honey, you can't just use hot, big, boobied models on things." Like that might have worked in your last job, but there's a little bit of hand holding with some of these really wealthy, older. Typically there's similar race and similar gender and similar socioeconomic status, and that has its own insular bubble and bias. And sometimes you need a younger person, a queer person, a person of color, a woman to say, hey, this is our demographic. I represent our demographic, and no one in the C-suite or the cap table does. And so you guys are all within this kind of corroboratory, everyone shaking their head, oh, that sounds good, because they're on a quick board call and they're like, yeah, that sounds fine. But they don't live in the culture. They're not steeped in cannabis marketing, messaging, advertising, publishing, and they don't know that certain things have already been proved not to hit the mark. Certain things have gotten brands canceled and they haven't come back from it. Certain things create poor morale in their companies and have high turnover, which is an extreme cost to the company. These things this is why I always say love can be lucrative, but also if you're not putting people before profit and your reputation before revenue, the base that built you can break you down.
That is interesting too, because it's a tale as old as time. That doesn't even happen just in cannabis, but it does happen a lot in cannabis, where it's like some types of short-term decisions tend to, can ruin a long-term plan. And that's a whole nother topic. But thinking through, this does go hand in hand with the team side, building out the teams for these cannabis companies. Obviously, you've been a part of some teams that have scaled up in some tough markets and just been a part of some winning teams. So I guess what were some synergies that you noticed between the teams, JSETI or Ispire, just because they were both teams that scaled relatively quickly and more or less still around in the cannabis industry? So what were some positives, things that they did right, at least at the people part?
Yeah, I'll start with Jetty. They are a family. So they are sets of brothers that have grown up and done this work together for a long time. So having that family vibe and people who understand that family vibe, that are loyal, that put in the extra time, that really help roll their sleeves up and put it on their chest. Jetty folks are diehard folks. So I think that there's that cultural fit that was really about Nate's a surfer and Rob's a snowboarder and Ron and Matt, they grew up in New York. They have more of a business mindset. So it has to serve the people. And they had an A team of really well-balanced, where there was enough people that were keeping their head in the spreadsheets, enough people that were keeping their head in the heady culture and the actual consumption space. There were the people that were more in the B2B side, what were the best filling machines, and making sure that the lab people, the surfers, stoners, and the capital raisers and business owner element were working together to make sure everyone was talking to each other. And they're so very much like that. Ispire was really more about, I would actually say it It was different because e-cigarette money allows for different kinds of hiring. And when you go public on the NASDAQ for your cannabis IP and the hardware side of it, you're really trying to appeal to, it doesn't really matter if you're in the cannabis space or not. You're really trying to appeal to just the MSOs and the decision makers who maybe come from CPG or corporate and aren't really coming from cannabis anyway. So like they would hire like a marketing team that wasn't from cannabis, and they would bring in salespeople that weren't necessarily from cannabis, because they were hoping that they would get that kind of mainstream approval and legitimacy and skill base and bring it into cannabis. And in some ways it really worked and went really well. And in other ways, the industry never fully, like the real heady industry never fully understood what they did, because they were just B2B. They were just selling to the brands. So it's not like you could go into a store and buy Ispire as a brand. So it was a little confusing because we were like trying to be too many things at once and have too many people in the lifestyle thing. We have this cool Venice Beach office and all these things, but at the end of the day, we were a Chinese manufacturer. So I think that the lesson from that was more about making sure that it's hard to bring not institutional money into a space and try to sell products to people that are not from the space, but then still trying to create legitimacy in the space and bring people from the space into it. That was what I think was the biggest challenge for us, was to really figure out like, where does the corporate interest and the culture begin? And for Jetty, they chose culture over the corporate. They said no to a lot of buyouts. They stayed even after Canopy bought them. They all stayed. They chose culture over that. And Ispire, because they were on the NASDAQ and they had a different value prop, they needed to make their shareholders happy. And that meant stepping away from cannabis. So they're not in that space anymore. They went back to the nicotine side. So I think that was it's important for all of us to learn that too, is really being honest about who's making the decisions. Because if your team is out there saying we're for the culture, but at the end of the day, when it hits the fan, that needs to be all the way through the culture to the top, or else just don't say it. Like some of these big MSOs, they don't even try to say that they're about the culture. And I actually respect them for that. Like,
Same. I'm like,
no,
dude,
if
no
you're going to
time.
be the Walgreens of weed, just be that, and don't be at all the sessions, and don't sponsor all these cool events that the real heads are hanging out with. And a lot of them don't even hang out with us. We don't never even met some of these people. We don't know any of them. You and I might, because we're capital B to capital B, lowercase b to C. They're never going to meet these people that are the heads of these big companies. And there's a reason for that. They need to stay clean. They need to stay sterile so that they can interact with government and legislators and big money people that don't think it's cool to necessarily be investing in cannabis. And they need someone that looks like them, that comes from banking or comes from finance, that tells them that it's okay. And this is the thing, is I'm not saying any of these things are good or bad. I'm not trying to throw shade.
No, yeah, we're just explaining the situation.
Right? Like we need, exactly. Thanks for understanding. But like we need all of it, the grassroots and the grass tops, like the MSOs. I'm all about access. I would give access to consumers over small businesses.
I live in Wisconsin. Like, we don't have any medical or adult use. Like, we
if
still
I need to watch
access.
businesses go under for people to get weed, even if it's mids that's overproduced, I actually don't care. I want cannabinoids as safe and cheap and easily accessible as Tylenol. That is, at the end of the day, and my small business people, I'm a co-chair of the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm part of all these business organizations. I'm not an anti-capitalist hippie all the way. Part of me is questioning it, but I believe in conscious capitalism. I believe, like I said, love can be lucrative and these things can make money. So it's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just acknowledging where you're at and then also helping out. If you're a smaller person, try to work with the MSOs, get some of your genetics in there, maybe tell them how to be a little bit more to the culture. And if you're up here, let's give some of your time and your sponsorship money to the little guys. We all need each other, right? The MSOs and the large,
an ecosystem.
they would be nowhere without their little baby ecosystem. Like you said, like we built it. The Northern California community built it. So there's no need to squash it. You know what I mean? Like when there was a very large retailer that is well known that started in Southern California, that its first out the gate campaign was not a stoner. And it's like, you don't need to poop on someone else to uplift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the most important thing that we need to learn, is like, this is that scarcity mindset, that there's a finite pie, is not true. And both sides have it. The hippies on the hill have it and the suits have it. And you and I talk about this all the time. We need the suits and the roots to work together in a synergistic, respectful way that honors the people with dirt under their nails and honors the people that live in spreadsheets. It's okay. There's no shame in either game. You being an undereducated rural person who has never left the farm, but you have the most fire genetics that everyone wants, or you come from a history in pharmaceutical or banking or whatever, and you've never been on a cannabis farm and have never smoked weed. Both have a place in this industry, and both need to feel empowered in the right ways instead of feeling like guilty. Oh, I'm not enough from the culture, or I didn't get a master's and MBA, so I'm talking. Like, you're all welcome here. Just be
And
good
needed.
and respect other people. Stop shit talking. Or you can edit that out of you can stop smack talking people, because a rising tide raises all boats, but also a sinking ship creates a sinkhole that all of us go down in. And the
No, it's
negative
the real thing.
has to stop.
It's like companies going out of good for really any business. Yeah, it's good to like you can get some cheap assets, I guess, but like in the bigger scheme of the industry, it's actually like hurts investor sentiment, and it hurts like somebody would probably lend them money, probably not going to do it again. If it was a bank, they're also going to be a little bit more strict. So now we need everybody to keep winning because we're not like out of it yet. And on that note, switching gears to like winning, let's talk a little bit about Luna Strategies and Luna Stower Strategies. And just you went out on your own about a year ago. Just tell me a little bit about like just what made you want to be a business owner. As we talked, like it's stressful. This industry is stressful. Being a business owner is stressful. Let's combine the two. We're probably crazy. And then also, what's the big problem you're trying to solve? Start with there.
Yeah, it goes back to exposure and quality content. I don't think that people are seeing and learning things, and I don't think that when they are, it's high quality. That's why I got my Ganjier certification and why I'm a Buddhist, and I believe in really creating a pathway for people, whether it doesn't matter where you are in the industry, to understand what's going on in the industry. So that's how I use my LinkedIn presence and my social media presence. For my marketing clients, I do everything from copywriting for e-newsletters or their LinkedIn copywriting, a lot of a ghostwriter for a lot of your favorite brands, and do a lot of strategy, high level market development and business development, making intros, because I travel to South America and Europe and have been for the last decade. I'm multilingual and connected in many different markets. I'm sitting on the board of NCIA and Cannavision Institute and the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce and the Cannabis Tourism Board and all of these things, to really just try to make sure that we're honoring this plant and making sure that the legacy of Brownie Mary and AIDS patients and the Emerald Triangle and all the things that we've been doing in our lives here to move this movement forward are being recognized in all these new markets, because we've done some things really well and we've done some things really poorly. And that's my purpose and my value prop is I really want to ensure that I've seen so much in the last 14 years that I've been in the formal industry and 20 plus that I've been working with the plant. And I don't want anyone to step in the same landmines that we've stepped in. So that's really what I do a lot with my advising, is letting folks know how certain markets are working. I do a lot of product development, because I am a judge for the California State Fair and the Emerald Cup and a bunch of different Farmers Cup and a bunch of different events, Dabadoo, where I'm testing rosin and cartridges and flowers and edibles and pre-rolls. And so I've seen a lot of things. I've worked at the retail level, so I know CPG and channel marketing and what moves the needle, who the actual purchasers are, what drives those decisions. And then I've gone through 2 public IPOs, so I know about investor sentiment very well. I know about what constitutes insider trading, how to comport yourself as a professional, keeping my C-suite ready with media training and getting people ready for the fallout when there's some kind of a trauma or some kind of a controversy in the space, reputational management, ideally hedging against it and prepping with the CYA beforehand.
Yeah,
but
try to keep out of trouble.
Yeah, try to not get there. But yeah, just helping people understand where they're going and who they should be talking to and how they should be messaging, and helping them frame that messaging is pretty much what I do. I'm a millennial or exennial, because I'm 84, so I'm in between Gen X and millennial, and I love being online. I love social media. I think it's such an incredible tool for us to give light and voice and amplify things you don't typically see in all of the spaces where you're in person. So I know we all like to talk down and say IRL is always better than online, but at the end of the day, you and I are sitting across the country from each other, having a very in-depth bonding conversation and deepening our connection over a Zoom. So that we need to allow that to have a space too. And yeah, I just have been loving doing my marketing gig, because it's just fun to be independent. And it's so cool because each of my clients, they're so unique and special. And a lot of them are female, and a lot of them have known me for a really long time. And it's just so cool that I believe in polyamory. I've been in a polyamorous relationship for 13 years, where the concept is compersion, not competition or not jealousy. And it doesn't have to just be romantic. It doesn't have to just be in business. It's in anything. It's with your sister, your neighbor. It's if you can be happy for someone else's flow and see that's gonna benefit you in the end, because the more abundant they are, the more they can bring back to you and your dynamic. That mindset is so positive and helpful for this industry. That's like this abundance mindset that things will happen for the good. So I'm in a room for a CPA conversation and I'm talking to someone who needs hardware. And then that person also is a brand who can work with Echo Certified. And I can also connect them with my insurance guy. And I can also connect them if they need pre-rolls with Moondust. And all of these people that I work with, it's like in one conversation, I can help 5 people. And it's all while smoking a bone outside of an event after the work hours are even done. And it's just a casual thing where I'm just putting people up on game because I know what works and I know the people to trust. It's such an organic thing. And it's so cool that someone supports me at one event and I'm able to go to this event and get them a sponsorship at this event and support someone else and bring in business. And it's not everyone can get me into every room. And a lot of them can't get into the rooms that I'm in and other things like that. And a lot of times I wouldn't be in rooms that they weren't getting me into. So that concept that we're in an ecosystem very much matches the nature of the plant and how she grows and how she thrives and how people in polyamorous relationships and structures thrive. Not everything has to be your all. Not everything has to be just one brand or one company or one product. Some of us have so much love and so much support to give that we're too big for just one W2. And that's a win-win for everyone, because then it builds my capacity to be able to take calls and donate my time to all these new startups and give away my time for free during the day because I don't have a crazy 9 to 5. I'm able to do all the stuff that feeds my soul because it's soul income. Not everything needs to be revenue in the bank account.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And what goes around comes around, and you kind of need to think of them all the time, and not in a selfish way, but it's, dude, I don't know. I know I owe somebody some favors. They owe me some favors. So it's like, the more that you can know people and make introductions, that's all perfect, problem solved. Because most problems are solved by humans still. I love technology, but it's still usually a human at the end of the day. That's, even if they got to use some form of tech, there's like a human that solves the problem. So it's like being able to find the right human usually solves the problem. And so then it's like just identify the right problem, and then I gotta just go find the human that knows the solution or knows the person who does. Network, it matters for a reason. And I kind of think of life before the internet. It's like people appreciated a Rolodex. They were like, yeah, this guy's been in the industry for 20 years. He knows everybody. Nowadays, we think we know everybody, but no, we definitely don't. Every time I go to an
Connected with
event,
me on LinkedIn doesn't mean
yeah, exactly. And just because you can search them up doesn't mean you know their email or their cell phone or even how to contact them. Just even like the people they don't know they're looking for, they think they can just find them. But it's once you start looking for a very specific solution, like, it's kind of hard to find. On that point, so some of the clients you work with, and just thinking through running a service-based business, we have a standard onboarding process, and it's like a very boring, regimented data gathering, and then we got to walk through some workflows currently, find the gaps, and blah, 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 blah. You know how accounting is. It's boring. How do you think through onboarding your clients?
same thing. Obviously, there's no forms that they're filling out, but I have my own internal, like I have my own. Do they fit the culture? Are they servicing the people? Are they giving back more than they're taking? So first off, they're not extractive or exploitative. Are they fun to work with? Do they love me? Do they get who I am? Do they appreciate me for my personality and my passion and my love of this plant and the way that I show up? Usually that's why they came to me, right? Maybe I'm quirky or something, but it's worked for me so far. So there we go. And then are they comfortable filling out a contract? They always have been. Really making sure that the terms are clear, that you know that I'm working with other people, that this is how I expect to get paid. This is the timeline, because I believe that it's like a prenup. There's nothing more loving and sexy than setting you up for not getting in a fight, right? So we don't want to have drama. So getting contracted up, like me having it's rarely like a very long redlining process, making sure that this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm not doing, this is what I'm good at, this is what you guys are going to handle, and all that stuff, so that it sets us up for success. And it's always worked for me. I've never had one client stop working with me. I've never had a drama ever because of this kind of vetting, and just making sure that the ongoing communication is good. And these are like usually they're either already friends or they become friends. So like you said, late night texts, random voice notes, like it's all very intimate thing. Feedback is fluid. It's loving, it's supportive, it's excited, it's positive, and really making sure that unlike most people, I check references. I call people. I say, hey, have you worked with these folks? Do they pay their bills? Are they being sued? Do they have any dramas?
Yeah.
I don't, like we've talked about, we don't have a third party ombudsman. We don't have a neutral Better Businesses Bureau, Angie's List, Yelp, any way to find out who are the bad actors. So so that's kind of what I've been trying to do too, is ask around, like, who am I getting involved with? Because everyone's investing in something, whether you're buying a part of a company, whether you're signing an LOI, whether you're signing a contract, or it's a client or a partnership or a license partnership or an IP buyout. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you are either leveraging your time, your brand, or money into someone else's company, you are an investor. And investors usually do due diligence. So I would ask that to you too. It's, what recommendations do you have for the industry on doing due diligence? Because I'm seeing a lot of people licking their wounds right now from making bad partnerships, not having the good contracts, sponsoring events that were run by crazy people, taking out advertisements in publications that never get published. What are the things that you're seeing can help people leverage against getting screwed out of millions of dollars and maybe losing their company?
No, it's a real thing. We were talking off camera. It's like everybody has heard the horror stories of especially partnerships now, because asset light brands and just business models, there's more new markets. And we've learned easier to roll up underneath somebody else's license in real estate than to have to go do it all yourself. But then it just creates another layer of complexity. It was hard enough to get this business safe and secure when like all the owners lived in the state and they all were brothers growing up. Now we have people who have done this before with local people that are like the locals. So you got to have somebody local on the license to win it. And even if they were successful business owners, then you have this immediate faction that of the local business people versus usually the capital and know-how. And it's like, all right, a lot of friction. So yeah, vetting and due diligence is becoming a little bit more interesting and just part of the process. Of people think there's less of a need for consultants as the industry normalizes. And it's, in my experience, the biggest industries have consultants. As the industry normalizes, gets bigger, more complex, more players, it's going to matter more having an industry knowledge. So no, it totally makes sense. Quick questions we had talked about this offline. And I know you're in the global cannabis market. Like I said, you've been to the Latin industries, you've been into Europe. I just call them the TAM and EMEA in North America. It's like how I chop it up. But thinking through some of these new, whether they're Canadians or North Americans, but people looking to get into new medical markets and bring their business over there, what comes first, product or brand? How should some of these people, and I guess even within the United States going into new markets, like how should they think through? How would you advise somebody when they're thinking through, do I want this type of product or this type of brand? Because I feel like it's a conversation that happens, to your point, at very high levels, and then they just disseminate it down. So I guess any thoughts on that?
Great question. I think that, first of all, did you say EMEA?
Yeah, EMEA, Europe and Middle East. That's how we used to break it down when at Johnson Controls. So North America would be like Canada down to Mexico. LATAM would be all Latin America. EMEA would be Europe, Middle East. And then APAC would be Asia Pacific.
Oh, God.
Just acronyms from fucking corporate America
You
jargon.
can't say APAC anymore. That got you.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm
edit
kidding.
that out, Bryce.
No, I'm kidding. It's the lobby. It's the lobby organization. No, that's good to know.
Yeah, product or brand? That was the question. What comes first?
Yeah, no, it's funny because as I think about the answer,
Yeah.
what comes up actually is neither first. Those are maybe second and third, and I'll list them. Is the audience or consumer. And in some cases, it's not a person. It might be a pharmaceutical company or a government that's running through their own pharma, in the case of Germany. So what I have found has been really frustrating is, to your point, some people have a brand and they're like all about their brand and they're so used to getting so much cred for being a cool brand that they're like, it doesn't matter what we sell. The product we're such a strong brand. We already have the winning equation for how to sell it through. Doesn't matter what it is, it could be a placeholder. Other people are like so obsessed with the product, but they have no brand behind it and no one cares about the product and it gets lost. So they're obviously very important. It's actually, I'll have a caveat real quick. This reminds me of a conversation I saw between Anthony Bourdain and Eric Repair, two very famous chefs. One passed away, unfortunately, friend of mine, Anthony Bourdain, R.I.P. Tony. But they were on the speaking tour, Good versus Evil, and one's a very put together, very French chef. And Tony Bourdain, if you know him, he's crass. He's from New Jersey. He's a former heroin addict, and he's an author with uses a lot of colorful language. And they would have a hot seat, and one would sit down and ask the questions. And Anthony asked Eric, what's more important, the chef or the meal? And of course, the Frenchman says, or the food. And the French chef, of course, says the food. The freshness is so important, and the flavors come through. And if the food is good enough, you can never ruin. And of course, Tony's, oh man, if you give me enough bacon fat, I can make that your chair taste good. And so it really is about style and what's more important, the chef or what you're cooking. It doesn't matter if the person eating doesn't have the right palate or for your food, right? So if you're used to eating greasy diner food, you're not going to be as happy with the French chef's ingredients. Or if you're only used to eating without any salt and no seasonings, you're going to be offended by the one that's putting too much on it. So it's the same thing with brand and product. Is if you're not matching and doing market research and building everything back, engineering it from the end result back, and also not only that person, but what is the market size? That's why you're seeing a lot of people that have niche marketing to just young women. They don't do that well, or just young men, or just old people. It's like they might do well in that category, but if maybe that's what you want. Do you want to just have a niche? What's your addressable market? How are they consuming? What's their income? How is their income being affected by tariffs and global wars and this petroleum thing and boycotts and all of these conflicts? What does that look like over time? And so I think that the problem is a lot of people come in with that founder concept, that they call it founder syndrome, where you just think that because you think you have a great idea and everyone around you is like agreeing and on board with it, that somehow that is enough to magically make people buy it or make a buyer place you against someone else who has a better price or a more well-known brand. There's always going to be someone better than you in this space. Unless you're one of the 1%, you have no differentiator unless you're really good, or you maybe have a friend who's a distro for something else, and or maybe you're in hemp and you can go in the smoke shop thing. But that's a long way of saying the product and the brand don't matter if you don't have an unbelievable buyer profile that your entire marketing and sales and product team has literally printed out persona on the wall, 4 different buckets. You have the soccer mom, you have the pharma executive, you have, because even though you're not selling it really to them, the legislators and like people watching and seeing how you're messaging to kids and blah, blah, blah. And then you have the like old lady with the money who just doesn't feel good and wants her pain to go away. So you have to shop every one of your messaging, your products, your packaging, your price points, your lead times, your Instagram campaign to each one of those. Is it going to match all of them? Is it going to match some of them? How are we making sure that all the stakeholders, really is maybe the better word for it, are getting it? Because then you know, okay, actually, we're finding out that we didn't want a vape, we want a tincture. And actually, it doesn't need to be super flashy because it's going to be behind a pharmaceutical thing where the packaging doesn't even need to be cute. They're going to just be giving it with a prescription, or this is going to be sold in a super urban area where they have no money. So it's going to have to be in a Mylar, and you thought you wanted to sell eighths. You're going to be selling dime sacks. And so it actually, people need to step back from the brand and back from the product and ask if what they want to do is even relevant.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's why it's like, I like that question, because it is funny. It's like the question is a foolish question if you don't start with the consumer and like, who are you actually making this for? Because yeah, maybe you're really making some innovative stuff, and then people see and they're like, oh, I didn't know I was a consumer of that. But 90% of the time we're selling stuff people have already bought, and I sell accounting, you sell marketing, consulting, and it's no, people have figured this out before. Being mindful of your time, because I could just chat with you all day, Luna. What am 2 questions, and then I'll let you out of here. So I'll just start with the one question of thinking ahead to the next 1 to 3 years. What's one thing you're concerned about and one thing you're excited about?
I think I've spent a lot of time talking about what I'm concerned about, so I'll just focus.
Yeah, let's finish on a high note. Let's just talk about what has you excited about the next 1 to 3 years.
I am excited about seeing cannabis become so normalized that someone can just spark up next to you and no one even notices.
Like, I got a bar when everyone's getting drunk and fucking taking shots of Jack Daniels, and they're like, I can't believe you smell like weed. I'm like, dude, I watched you drink 7 fucking old fashions.
Rail coke off of your friend's whatever in the bathroom. No, dude, I don't want to hear none of that. Yeah, I'm excited to see I'm excited to see that like edge falling off. And then with that, the investors sentiment and people wanting to come back in the space. I'm excited to see people putting more money into small farmers and regenerative agriculture and seeing all the breeders that were at the Buddhist event. We did a launch event at the Chapel of the Flowers in Berkeley last week that had 20 different farmers and farms
Nice.
from 7 different counties across California come through and share their genetics and talk with each other. And we had Origins Council and CCIA and the Humboldt County Growers Alliance and all of these advocacy organizations do a panel and talk about the future of appellations, which is like really important, more of that education and getting everyone together. And it really lifted my spirits and shows me that the industry is on the right foot and we are moving towards a future that we can all hang our hat on and hopefully move through some of this, because Schedule 3 is not going to impact most of us in the short term. So right now we just need to be making sure that everyone's surviving. So support your local Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, support your local dope CFO,
Support your local growers. Buy their
support your local
Yarbo.
growers, support your local marketer. If you know anyone who needs support telling their stories, I'm here to help. Even I don't always even charge. Like people who just need help, I do a lot of free consulting in this space for people that deserve it and people who are doing good work and our startups and women run and people of color run and indigenous owned. Always down for making sure that we say everyone rises, we rise together. And it really is a cliche for a reason. I really do believe that when one of us is doing well, all of us are. So thank you to Ray and Dope CFO for having me and for being such an incredible interviewer. I had so much fun doing a deep dive. And the things that we are concerned about, we're not doing it to tear anyone down or to overwhelm or to sound negative. But we have to be honest about what's not working, and we need to name these things in order to be empowered to change them and have the call to action and have the Monday morning strategy be, this is how you can button up your business and not lose money. This is how you can keep your employees happy and the morale high. This is how you can keep your own interest in staying in this industry. Here is, we have to keep it positive. We have to keep it forward moving. And sometimes that does mean taking a critical lens and calling things out, but really we're calling them in, we're calling them up to a higher standard. And that's what it is. So we always say it's not industry gossip. It's a loving news. We're letting each other know what's going on because we want to see each other survive and thrive.
For sure, for sure. And right now, yeah, surviving is thriving. Thanks so much for your time, Luna. You have a good rest of your day and we'll be in touch. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Yep. Ciao.